Hi, I'm Matt.
I'm Sam.
Usually said the other way around, but
This is Lulu.
This is Lulu.
Hello.
This sound you are hearing is the sound of Lulu. Here you go, girl. I think she just doesn't. She just wants to annoy our camera by meowing. So,
Yeah, keep going.
so we've just watched the 5th of the 6th episode revival miniseries
Of the X-Files. This
And-
is something Babylon.
something Babylon sounds right.
Mm-hmm.
So the story of this episode is, this episode, the preview looked great because the preview is Fox and Dana see these two previous versions of themselves, basically.
You see, when you say that, it makes it sound like time travel.
True. Two agents who are like previous versions of themselves,
Mm-hmm.
named Miller and Einstein.
Yeah. Miller, which is obvious, and Einstein, I guess, because Scully's smart.
She's a scientist and she believes in science.
Mm-hmm.
And it sets up a joke at the end where she quotes Einstein. She says, Einstein said that, and I just quoted it.
And the funny part was, like, I just heard that quote, and I'm like, oh, who said that? Oh, jeez. It was it's Einstein. Yeah, it's her. I guess.
So that was... So, this episode left a little bit of a confused feeling afterward. I wasn't sure what it was about at first.
Yeah.
It kind of took some thinking. But I do think that there's two things, I think, which separate this from the agents Mulder and Scully meet the werepeoples or something.
Okay, I mean, I wouldn't... comparing those wouldn't be my first thought, but go ahead.
Well, in the sort of weird, humorously exaggerated world these characters are ending up in,
Mm-hmm.
It seemed appropriate to me. The thing, one is that this story is about something.
Yeah, unlike the person.
Yeah, it's like there is a central theme. It's not just jokes for the sake of jokes. And two, it's actually funny.
Mm-hmm.
It's that really counts because it's genuinely amusing.
Yeah.
So, the first thing I noticed in this episode, because it was the first scene, is this guy doing Islam prayers.
Yeah.
Excuse me. That is not a sound I've ever heard before, and it sounds bad. Lulu. No, Lulu. What do you got?
No, put down the gun, Lulu!
Okay, good. I'm glad you let me know you found this. You could
Phew.
have found this.
Oh, disaster averted.
Yeah.
So many people could have died.
Just millions. It would have been worse than 1,000 atomic bombs. Because, a million is a statistic, but Lulu is a tragedy. So, here, the basic, this whole episode is really about sort of the value of communication and people who are different learning to work together.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I will give an incredibly brief, though not my humorously brief summaries of this episode, just to catch people up to speed, because what I'm talking about.
Okay. I'll zip my lips and let you take care of it quickly.
Yeah, it's not even, so, we open with, so there was a guy doing an Islam prayer, and he's like, I like Islam, it's really good, and he goes and makes a sandwich and says, I like Islam, but I'm saying this in Arabic right now. Go God, he is the best. And then he drives around, he meets his friend, they get in the car, they go into a building, and then they blow themselves up. And then...
the building blows up.
Yes, the building blows up. They do turn out to have blown themselves up.
Yeah, but there was some question.
There was, yeah. This being the X-Files, it is quite possible that we were meant to interpret them as going on a date or something.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, we were obviously meant to interpret it as them blowing themselves up, but it's possible that they could have been going on a date.
Yeah.
Because good X-Files episodes have really worked with that idea that you show a person as being obviously the bad guy.
And
then you later see them in the other light.
Mm-hmm.
So what didn't work for me at first was that this guy's Islam prayer seemed a little insincere for him to be a terrorist.
He seemed bored, was what you said. And
Yeah, he seemed bored, and it seemed perfunctory.
Which was totally fine until he apparently blew himself up.
It did kind of get rescued by the end of the episode, where the guy's... Apparently he talked to his mother after death and was like, Mom, I didn't want to be a terrorist, but then I was one anyway, but I thought it was stupid and I tried not to, but then there was this scene you saw where a guy's like, you will both push the button together, so the other guy wanted to be a terrorist.
The thing is, I mean, that doesn't translate to me into perfunctory.
Yeah.
Perfunctorily.
Yeah,
right.
it could, he could...
This is his last prayer, because clearly some part of him thinks that he ought to do it, so wouldn't that last prayer wouldn't he be thinking about, well, you know...
Yeah, like, it didn't
this is not the same as like a Dear God Christian prayer, I forget what those are called, there's some technical term. It's like, but on some level this is communicating with God, right? Like, shouldn't you feel like, hey God, am I supposed to be doing this after all?
Well,
if he's having doubts.
It's a less communicative type of prayer.
Yeah.
It's sort of also a symbol of obedience to God.
Yes.
But like the thing for me was, at first I was like, I don't believe him being a terrorist, but I guess it's possible what they could be saying was because, as we see throughout the teaser, he is being rejected on sight, even though the people who are rejecting him don't actually know he's a Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
They just know he looks like a Muslim. So I guess what they could be saying with this is he found companionship with the rest of the terrorist peoples because they were the only people who didn't mind he looked like a Muslim. But maybe he was not super that Islamic anyway.
Or maybe he wasn't into their particular sect.
Yeah, because I mean that's something you hear from the people who were formerly IRA or formerly white supremacists is, well, I mean, I only really got into it because they were the people who accepted me. So maybe that's what they were going for. I don't know. Really, this was only a piece of the thing. So
yeah, it's still just the prayer being a little dispassionate. That's odd to me.
The prayer was a little dispassionate. It's possible they were trying to do something with it. I think it's also possible the director had no idea how to direct a Muslim prayer, and the actor needed direction.
Mm-hmm.
Is the way it really plays out to me is like the actor's like, okay, so I just pray. I mean, maybe I'm a Muslim who knows about praying, so go God, that's what we do. Is this take right? Nobody's...
Yeah, it's great. Okay, lunch.
Yeah, nobody's really directing me on this, I guess. I guess I'm doing okay. Because like, some actors do need direction, so... Then he goes into his, and then he gets his sandwich, and then he goes and he meets his friend, and they blow up. So then we get to Mulder and Scully, and you know, Scully's like talking about, oh well, some people think that heard weird trumpets that they're communicating with God, and I suspect
after the explosion.
Yeah. Well, he didn't say it was after the explosion. He just said people are hearing these weird trumpets. And I think that's going to be, next episode, the sound of alien ships crashing. There we go. So,
and this scene is just generally great and funny, and Mulder and Scully are bouncing off each other.
Yeah, they're being Mulder and Scully, and especially if this turns out to be foreshadowing for next episode, it's a really good scene. So then, these two people show up, and they... are exactly like young Scully and Mully. Mm-hmm. And they're like, they show up and they're very snippy with each other and very snippy to their opposite counterpart. Mm-hmm. Especially Einstein to Mulder. And a little bit, you know...
But there's more, because there's also Einstein being dismissive of Scully because she's putting up with Mulder.
Yeah.
And she just thinks it's kind of pathetic and embarrassing.
Yep. Yeah.
Actually, there's no actual enmity between Mulder and Miller.
Yeah.
They're cool. They're like, yeah, we're both awesome.
Yeah.
Science fiction rules.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, stuff that is real and mysterious rules.
But definitely real. So they were great to get. This was
Seems like a fine young man, says Mulder.
Yeah, this was a great scene, and then Miller and Einstein leave, and they're like, we've got to go be science now.
Yeah, Miller thought that maybe you could help us, Mulder, because you know about spooky stuff, but we should probably get going to actually, like, talk to people involved.
Yeah, like, so really, because for most of the episode, the actual terrorism subplot doesn't actually matter. Mm-hmm. It's not relevant to the theme of the episode that much, aside from what, the power of communication.
And that's due to what Mulder does. Yeah. And Einstein, I suppose.
Yeah, and the central theme of the episode is the power of, like, communication and cooperation and to affect people and whatnot. Which is good. And so then Mully calls Miller.
Are you okay?
Scully calls Miller on the phone before Miller and Einstein leave, and she's like, "Hey, Miller, we gotta do a team up."
Yep.
And then,
I know a secret way to get him to come back to life. He's like, "Is it alien something or other?" No, he doesn't say that.
And then Mulder calls Einstein. He's like, "Hey, Einstein, your name's easier to pronounce. Also, I also have a plan." And then Mully and Miller hang out and do science.
Well, Scully and Miller.
Yes.
Scully and Miller fly off to...
Was that not what I said?
You said Miller. You said...
Mully.
You said Mully.
Oh, I went Mully.
So Scully and Miller go down to Texas, and meanwhile, Einstein and Mulder stay up, just so that their arrivals are staggered enough that they won't actually be meeting.
Yep.
Basically. So anyway, Scully's got a plan, and her plan is with science.
Yep.
She is going to use this technology, which seems plausible enough that it feels totally separate from what Mulder is going to try.
Yep.
It's really excellent. I think they chose exactly the right thing. Basically, they're going to ask him questions, and if they can scan his brain with science devices, like MRIs.
They will check their science charts.
Check their science charts to see him reacting with parts of the brain that seem to indicate yes or no. Yeah. And she's like, and she even like, because like they handle it rather well. Yeah. She's even like, oh, it's kind of like a crapshoot.
Yeah, and really again, like the specifics of these aren't really the point, because like the point of the
the point is that they should feel different.
Well, yes, but like I'm just trying to summarize the plot.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So Scully and Miller is like, hey, we're going to do science things, and then Mulder calls Einstein. He's like, I'm going to do Mulder-type non-science things. And Einstein's like, I think this sounds stupid. And with Miller and Scully, Miller's like, I seem a little unsure about your non-magic plan. But they go and eventually... and Einstein goes and sees that Miller is hanging out with Scully, and she gets really jealous because she thought she was his hot redhead science partner, and she decides to call in Mulder to be her generically handsome FBI agent partner, and
to go with his crazy plan.
Go with the crazy plan, which I really love, is get super hot.
Yeah.
So then they do the crazy plan, and eventually both of their plans together work out. And then they leave, and Einstein and Miller are like, I guess we learned that maybe each other's methods have some use, because both of them were like, well, the other one was, the person who used your type of method was the one who did everything. I just hung around. And then meanwhile, Einstein, that's Scully and Mulder.
Yeah.
Hanging out, and are like, well, I wonder why people are such dicks to each other sometimes, but I guess that's the power of communication. It's super important, and something about motherhood, let's try to cram that in, and oh look, it's that sound of trumpets.
And then darkness.
Yeah. So what this really was, and there were some other things in it, and what this really was about was the power of the communication, and acknowledging the importance of other people's perspective. Getting they were trying to communicate with the terrorist, even though everyone else was saying communicating with the terrorist is stupid, but not because he's dead, but because he's terrorism. Mm-hmm. And there were the sort of the three groups of people who object to that. The first group were, I think, kind of a waste of space. It was the NSA being like, we want secrets, we need to do secret things. We're doing secrets at you. And Mulder's like, I don't like secrets.
Starts taking their picture.
Yep, and also they identified themselves as Miller and Miller, which was good because it was so obviously pseudonyms. And then the next one is the Homeland Security guy who's like, I think we should only keep this guy alive to torture him because who he is doesn't matter, and also he's evil and terrorism. And then Mulder and Einstein are like, or maybe it was...
I think it was Mulder and Einstein.
Mulder and Einstein are like, no, you're wrong, he isn't terrorism. And then there's the crazy Tea Party lady nurse who's like, going with all the generic Alex Jones conspiracy theories things about how the UN is taking over America. And she tries to kill the terrorist dude, and she's like, and this guy's like, no, but we want to, I said, or someone's like, well, no, but we want to, like, talk to him so we can figure out what's going on. She's like, but he's terrorism! Us is the UN! So that showed the people who were unwilling to communicate. You know?
Sure.
And the even, like, we kept cutting away to this news show where it's just two people talking over each other and not communicating.
Very true.
And
the news show where they're discussing the explosion.
Yep.
And one person is 100% firmly in camp. I guess just don't print cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad. And the other one is like, yeah, freedom of speech. And it's just this jumble of words.
Yeah.
Oh, which reminds me of another thing. Oh, well, I might as well say it. Like, because they've got the scene where they've got the terrorist cell.
Yep.
And they're chanting, you know, God is great, but by the end, it doesn't sound like language anymore.
Yeah.
It's just this weird, messy demon voice.
Yeah.
Of spookiness.
And they had like a lot of reverb and stuff to make it seem like that is an intentional thing. It's not like
for sure.
I know. I
wasn't thinking of it before in terms of the communication theme.
Yeah.
So it's more impressive now.
Yeah, it's these people no longer communicating, and the fact that the way the terrorism is set up is to prevent communication. That you will both press the button. Thus, it's really, you can't talk about this. If one of you has second thoughts, the other they can't say, wait, what if we don't?
Mm-hmm.
There is no, the terrorism is not willing to communicate. It's just saying, like, you are one and you don't question anything. And eventually, Scully's weird science trick gets something out of this guy to really be trying to survive, trying to deliver an answer, which I think we were then meant to interpret something Mulder said was implied his delivering of the answer was what allowed Mulder's weird magic shit to work.
We should probably talk about Mulder's experience.
So Mulder gets super high.
So, like, at first, of course, Einstein wasn't on board with this plan. It's terrible and could get her fired. He's asking her to get him mushrooms. But eventually she does, so she gives him a pill. And there's a great scene where they're just talking to the Tea Party nurse.
Yeah.
And he's like, I forget what she was saying. Like, Agent Mulder and I here should... And Mulder sticks out his tongue and the pill is there on his tongue. He's like, he's ready to swallow. It's like, actually, maybe you should go right now.
Yeah. And then she's like, yeah, the Tea Party nurse is like, well, they're saying everybody needs to get out of here. And then she's like, well, we're just here for a few minutes. And the nurse is like, well, really? Because your friend already left. And then we see just this long dance sequence, which then it gets...
Mulder,
yeah, Mulder goes out...
goes through the halls. I mean, I need to describe all of this. Every moment of this is pure gold.
Yes.
He's going through the halls, giving people slaps on the back. We've got this very unsettling camera that's tracking with him. It's facing front, so we can't see where he's going, just where he's been.
Yeah, and when it does go,
always an uncomfortable place to be.
And when it does go behind him, it's directly behind his head, so we can't really see what's coming up.
And then he goes, and then winks.
Yep.
And so it's just great because seeing people make fools of themselves, especially Mulder, in such a direct way, is just classic.
Yeah.
His plan, which we haven't explained, I mean, do we even need to explain?
His plan is if you are really high, you can talk to dead people.
Yeah. It's like, and this guy's not even dead, he's just in a coma.
So it must be super easy to talk to him while I'm high. So then he goes out, and then things get gradually trippier and trippier. Mm-hmm. And it really works, and towards the end, you're getting a lot of quick cuts, and this is why I did have to spoil him for this. This is why I spoiled you, because then it's getting trippier and trippier, and also both surrealer and scarier, because now we see cuts of in the crowd. We see quick cuts of the lone gunman, and like we saw at first, Mulder stole Skinner's hat. Skinner was one of the cowboys at the bar.
That was Skinner?
Yeah.
No, I thought that was the cowboy guy from the crowd before, when he looked at someone and said, how do you say howdy, partner, in Arabic?
I assumed it was Skinner because Mulder's when he
later
saw
on Skinner says, "I took your hat," which was surprising to me because I didn't think it was him. So
yeah, but yeah, so like it gets both more obviously unreal and more obviously dark because now we are seeing dead people in the crowd. Mm-hmm. Even if it's just for like one flash of them and they're not dressed normally, we're seeing the lone gunmen who are dead. Mm-hmm. And then we see Mulder on a barge of the dead type thing, like he's on a barge and he's getting, then he's on the alien exam table that they always use with the weird symbols, getting whipped by dominatrix Einstein. And then he's on a barge getting whipped by the smoking man, and he sees the terrorist and his mother in a pieta pose, mm-hmm. and the terrorist says something that Mulder can't quite hear.
He's whispering it again and again. And it was funny because the soundtrack had a repeating set of words.
Yeah.
So I thought he was maybe saying that, but no, he was saying something different.
He was maybe saying, I got a real good feeling something bad's about to happen.
But one last thing to emphasize is all these sections are shot completely differently.
Yeah.
Especially the boat. Like the whole color palette changes. It just feels different. If I watched it again, I might have some other fancy schmancier word for all the sort of things that are changing. But you almost could not have a more different visual style.
Yeah, like the hospital is a typical this guy is high scene. Mm-hmm. And then we see him walking basically down the center of a road. And the car is swerving. And he's still acting like this guy is high scene, but it's much darker lit. And then we see him in the bar, and in the bar...
With the hoedown.
Yeah, with the hoedown. It's shot like a 80s dance movie, but with the Mulder is high reverb stuff.
And the great touch of Mulder doing dance moves that are debatably real.
Yes. And then, as it gets to the more surreal sections, it's just him in the corner. Again, sort of maybe like, it's sort of like the standard guy who won a bunch of money in Vegas shots. But like, him being a hot shot in the corner, and it's all these really quick cuts, and the already like warm neon lighting of the bar is now going from looking very red to looking like it's on fire. And now we cut here to, I think almost the entire boat scene is CGI.
It's super CGI. I think that's the really important part.
Like, I would not be surprised if even they mocapped William B. Davis for it. Like, because it looks CGI, and it looks intentionally artfully CGI.
And it's very smooth, because the cuts slow down.
Yeah. Like, it now it looks almost like if this was a normal scene where for some reason Mulder was on a grey boat being whipped by the smoking man and trying to talk to a terrorist whose voice echoes. But then apparently that worked because he recognizes the guy's mother from his dream, and the guy's mother goes in and explains how this guy definitely doesn't want to be a terrorist.
Yeah. In the real world, in the hospital.
Yeah. And then Mulder is able to tell Miller, who speaks Arabic, the words this guy said, and it turns out to be
the name of a hotel.
Yeah, it turns out it eventually says Babylon, and they describe the story of the Tower of Babel quickly for us.
Yeah.
And it's like Babylon something. Is it Babylon, the hotel?
It's like, yes, thank you, dying man. That's way more practical than a hidden theological clue.
Yep. You did kind of expect it to be It's
like, oh, but Babylon, that would mean, could it be that it's this thing?
Yes, and then, I learned this information that will make it that thing.
Yeah, no.
But no, it's Babylon, the quote, parentheses, the hotel.
Next scene, the police in massive swarms are pulling up to Babylon, the hotel.
Yes.
And they completely succeed in taking down the terrorist sect.
Yep. And one thing I thought was interesting about the terrorist sect was they did not only use Islamic-looking actors, Arabic-looking actors for it.
It's nice that something's being done right.
Yeah. Both for, the terrorist guy, the guy we keep calling the terrorist, who I guess because he tried to quit at the last moment is not as much of a terrorist. The person who pressed the button for him was not Arabic looking.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people in the hotel who are really not Arabic looking.
Yeah, because welcome to religion.
Yes, one of them looks just like you if you wore a flannel shirt and had long hair.
How did you know I was an actor on the X-Files? Darn it!
But yeah, it's a good choice, and then that gives us room for these two codas, one of Miller and Einstein, saying basically I did none of the work. It was all the main character equivalent of you. Thus, seeing that they are now willing to listen to each other because Miller
they represent the completed versions of themselves. Scully is the completed Einstein, and Mulder is the completed Miller, and so they can see in some ways that Miller and Einstein are the exaggerated versions of Mulder and Scully. In some ways, it's the other way around. Yeah,
and you also, in more practical terms, they are either the way that Mulder and Scully see each other, as we saw in that episode, the vampire episode. I forget the name of. I was talking to you where it's where they kill a pizza boy, because Mulder thinks he's a vampire.
Whoops.
And it's exaggerated forms of each other, but it's also exaggerated forms specifically of season 1 and 2 version of them.
Mm-hmm.
The version of them who still don't trust the other one's method.
Yeah, and that's what I like about this is they have the two codas, and while I'm not sort of a fan of such a slow end in theory, there are some good things about it, especially that the first coda, with them learning to trust each other, for obvious reasons, could not possibly be Mulder and Scully's coda.
Yes.
That would be absurd.
Yeah.
But it's seeing them once again, it's almost like seeing Mulder and Scully once again confirm that they have value in each other.
Yeah.
That it's not just a fluke that they Mulder and Scully respect each other, which refutes what Einstein said, which we forgot to mention, where she was saying that the only reason Scully was hanging around Mulder was because she was in love with him.
Yeah,
which could be true, but that's not why.
Yeah, and especially also it works because it makes explicit without any doubt that yes, it is not they have been through so much together that they've learned to work with each other because they're the only ones who've been through that time that the devil took over a middle school and was apparently an okay substitute teacher.
Yeah.
I guess the X-Files was the secret prequel to Assassination Classroom. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. But, they were the only ones who knew that time. No, it is each other's, methodology which has become more useful. As we see the younger version of themselves who don't like each other validate the methodology.
Mm-hmm.
Then Mulder and Scully's coda, I guess, is more on topic for the episode as a whole. But here's the problem for me with this second coda. I liked that it was them communicating with each other, because it is about communicating with each other. I liked that it's, that they talk over the themes of the episode. What I don't like, and this is obviously very hard to do, it comes across too vague, I feel. Because, as a writer, you're trying to write this scene. It's a special type of dialogue you only get in this type of scene. Where you're trying to write this scene, but you don't feel like you can just have the characters say, here's what I learned today.
About communication.
Yes. Like, gee, Mulder, isn't communication super? I was like, yeah, it sure is.
Well, it can make people kill each other, but it can also be a great good in the world.
Yeah. And, obviously, you could write a better version where that's actually done. But as a result, they are weirdly talking around the subject in a manner that feels unnatural.
Because why are they avoiding it?
Yeah,
they're avoiding it because they're so scared of what it will sound like if they don't. If the writers are so scared of what it will sound like if they don't.
Yeah, it's sort of like they're afraid of it because it will feel like it'll feel like kind of as you knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And I recently played NBA 2K16's my career mode, so terrible as you knowing has been on my mind.
Yep, just like our parents. 32 years and they both still at the post office. Mom selling stamps.
Thank you, a Spike Lee joint. But so they don't feel like they can have these characters just say to each other, here's what we learned today about communication. It is good, but it can sometimes make people be bad.
Mm-hmm.
So they talk around it in a manner where it's like, well, really, the dialogue sounds like, those secret conspiracy conversations you get in episodes, especially X-Files, because it has conspiracies, but other shows too. It's where you get, the mysterious people in the dark room be like,
oh, yeah.
Is the project going according to plan? Yes, but...
Icarus is reticent.
Yes. Well, they'll be saying things that, who is Icarus again?
And there should be a guy at every secret meeting who's like that.
Well, it is, it's things where, they'll be saying things that are in basically plain speech, but only if you share their knowledge would it make sense.
Mm.
But,
But it's weird.
It's it makes sense at least because these are people who would reasonably be afraid that someone is listening in. So, the Mafia being looks like our friend has been causing some difficulties with the plan that I set in motion.
You want me to kill him? No, I got you.
Yes, our friend needs to have... Are you saying something should happen to him? I am saying something should happen to him. That thing is maybe you're listening in.
Mm-hmm.
So, but here it's why are Mulder and Scully afraid someone will eavesdrop on their conversation about how important conversation is? So, that was kind of weird, but it was an okay coda, and then it ends with the Mulder hearing the trumpet sound he'd been talking to Scully about. And we see some implication that Miller and Einstein will be back next episode, as will
The Smoking Man.
The Smoking Man and Alex Jones as played by Joel McHale. And Alex Jones as played by Joel McHale is
Was he just hiding in a cave?
I don't know.
I really thought the implication was that he was fucking dead.
He got 404'd.
He got
They 404'd
the Google.
They 404'd the Googles. I didn't even know you could 404 a specific Google.
I guess he was I'm 404, time for me to just give up on my lucrative career.
So
I guess he, on his end, he's got a bunch of staff just trying to deal with the problem, and the other end, the conspiracy.
They're trying to talk to Google nerds. They're calling Google some... People have been 404ing all searches for our name. Google wasn't in on it, so they've been trying to figure out how this happened and going through the code for all these 6 episodes.
It's I really have trouble imagining what Joel McHale's character could have been doing.
Yeah.
For the last 4 episodes. 4 episodes.
Was he running his own show, but It's just that one time Google got 404'd. Google can't turn on 404 unless you actually did not, like, unless your internet just went down.
I mean, at some point, they would have to, like, if he's going to be back on the air, then, like, if his videos are up anywhere, like, mirrored anywhere, even if they're not, surely he'd put them up again unless the conspiracy went to him, killed him, or, like, got him to be quiet. Anyway, sorry.
Point is,
this is too much speculation for a thing that hasn't happened yet.
yeah, point is, you know, we're going to see the finale. It's going to be big. It's going to have all these new cool characters that we saw that we kind of liked.
And everyone on Earth will have alien DNA.
Yep, and
it
now
will turn out that that's, like, kind of irrelevant because DNA, like, gets in all sorts of weird places.
And everyone on Earth turned out to be a chess prodigy. So now, because we have limited time on this camera.
No, we're doing fine.
Right,
but there's one other thing.
Yeah.
The fact that the pill that Mulder got was a placebo, maybe.
Yeah.
I just thought it's interesting because my feeling was, and I didn't even really think about it, was that it was a placebo because it seemed like the sort of thing that Einstein would do to Mulder. But your theory is very sensible.
My theory at the time, and that doesn't quite fit in as well as yours with the power of communication aspect of the show, where it is that she is communicating the idea of the pill, which holds more power than the actual pill.
Mm-hmm.
But my idea was that she was lying about having given him a fake one.
Which is appealing in its own way because she does say outright that she has sort of some hopes that Mulder's method will work.
Yeah.
So it sort of would make sense for her to give him a real pill and then claim that she had given him a placebo, which deals with her case, if Mulder is correct, while also screwing Mulder over and making him a laughingstock.
Yeah.
Which is she's fine with, because I guess she's an asshole.
Yeah, well, she is an asshole at that point in time. She's less than one now. Yeah. So I guess like if it is a placebo, it fits the theme of the episode better. If it is not a placebo, I think it fits the character better.
Yeah.
To have given him a real one and then lied to people about it. Also, Skinner was in the episode and he was enjoyably curmudgeonly. He showed up and
he didn't have a hat. Mulder took it.
Mulder was like, "I took your hat." Sorry, I took your hat. But yeah, so all told, it was a enjoyable time. It was a good episode. Led us into the finale well. Thinking of rating it out of 10.
Oh, just one other thing.
Yeah.
I mean, since we're just throwing stuff around, it bugs me a little because it feels like an attempt at ripped from the headlines to me, which is a little weird because this is not a thing that has happened in the United States.
Yep.
So it feels a little bit like it comes from a world in which this has been happening.
It feels belatedly ripped from the headlines, which I guess is excusable because it wouldn't be weird if this had aired shortly after the Charlie Hebdo shooting.
Yeah, that would have. Yeah.
So
and they do invoke the Hebdo shootings.
So
it's a little. It feels a little belated, I guess.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, this whole world, Texas, I guess, the world of Texas. Well, everything is bigger in Texas, as all the characters are bigger, and everybody it's. The NSA agents are exaggerated NSA agents who introduce themselves with obviously fake names.
Mm-hmm. And there's the nurse who for no particular reason I can tell starts doing the Tea Party conspiracy thing.
Yeah, who immediately goes into it to the first person she sees.
Yes, even though that would make it look like she was about to maybe murder someone.
Yeah, and the Department of Homeland Security guy is like, I definitely don't want something bad to happen to this terrible person who I hate.
Yeah, it's it was weird enough that I did wonder a little, and it's this way back to the weremonster thing, whether there was some sort of point to it, about, and I thought maybe it was tied into the angelic trumpets or whatever, but it bothered me way, way, way less.
Well, it worked.
About halfway through the episode, I realized that it was an intentional and absurd aspect of the episode.
Yeah. The absurdness was it is exaggerating these people, but it is exaggerations of realistic behavior.
Mm-hmm.
NSA agents using fake names happens. Not in this obviously hilarious and fake way, but it happens. Department of Homeland Security people suggesting you torture someone, that happens. It does not happen in this, no, I definitely want nothing to happen to the evil person who I hate way, but it happens. And yes, there are the crazy Tea Party people, but they are not just short of ranting to the first person they see.
Yeah.
And that fits also with Miller and especially Einstein, who I absolutely loved in this, being exaggerations of Mulder and Scully.
Very true.
So
it's the world of perceptions of other people, which is so important to an episode about communication.
yeah, so it fits well, much more than, because this episode, the difference between this episode and the Were Monster for me is that this episode's about something, you know, like it has a point. So all of this crazy shit has a point. There's a reason it's happening. So I don't mind, like, so there is the weird shit, but like there was no point to the Were Monster.
Yeah.
And that was ultimately the problem.
Sort of, I guess, generically ennui.
Yeah.
Like dissatisfaction with being a human being.
Yeah, but like that wasn't so much a theme as like
Yeah.
you feel like you're grasping when you say that's the theme. What is the therapist calling people crazy and is passive aggressively prescribing meds have to do with that?
Nothing at all.
Exactly. So that's sort of the way I feel on this.
Yeah. Your talk about this has bumped my grade up for sure.
Yeah. So we're rating it out of 10.
Yeah.
And what do you rate it? You go first this time.
I'm gonna give it a 9. It's very funny. There's lots of great characters. I guess I could possibly defer judgment until next time, but it feels sort of rich in theme and interested in this topic. And really, to some degree, what I want is not a instructive guide to communication, but just a story that wants to think about it.
Yeah, I'm going to, I'm torn a little between 8.5 and 9 myself. I could split them and say 8.75. I'm going to go up with 9 as well.
Yeah.
It feels like it works well for me. Because it's just, it felt like a very good, there were maybe, I guess, some ways it could have been better. The pacing seemed a little weird at times, and that last coda muddled things so much. And it's only that last one that was making me consider bumping it down. But overall, I'm going to call it a 9 and give them a mulligan on the coda.
Mm-hmm.
So
next week.
Yeah, we'll see you next week. Or alternately, if all these videos go up at once, because we have something of a backlog.
We do. It's quite incredible.
We will see you in the next video, be that next week or next minute. I don't know. Click on ahead, I guess.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy videos.